Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. And we're going to deep dive into storytelling frameworks and then take those frameworks and twist them for our own tabletop role playing needs. We're revisiting the hero's journey, which is very classic, sometimes called the monomyth. And that hero's journey has then been funneled down into more a 12-step process for novelization and script writing. But a new framework was created by Douglas A. Burton, known as the Heroines Labyrinth. I'm going to be calling it The Journey and the Labyrinth. And then we are going to also see if we can create like a third category, or if a third category comes out of it, and just be inspired by that and kind of think about we're going to talk about what the monomyth is, which actually technically now, if you consider the labyrinth, it's more like instead of a monomyth, it's a biomyth. But anyway, we're going to talk about these things. So basically, put your feet up, grab your snacks, and let's get it. I know I triggered you there, Drew. Okay, so that we're on the same page, because I'm going to share out some quite a bit of information. The idea of the monomyth, mind you, we're trying to break the monomyth, but the idea of the monomyth is that through storytelling, there are aspects that always come up that if they are missing from a story, we subconsciously realize that there's something wrong, and that many of these elements come up over and over again when it comes to storytelling or myth. Guys in the chat, because I will put the chat up, if you're hearing any, or if you hear or see things going on in the background, just let me know. Not much I can do about it, but just let me know. Actually, let me see if I can change the background, because honestly, there is something happening on my end, but I'm using a streaming software, so I'm sure between me and you, there's some issues. So the monomyth idea began with Joseph Campbell and stuck around for quite a while, and it had 17 steps to it. And then later on, that monomyth was then rewritten as the hero's journey for screenwriting and storytelling. And they created it to be very generalized, but it was so massaged that it didn't really fit for a lot of other stories. And so I really appreciate someone who I've interviewed and who had been interviewed by the gentleman who did rewrite the hero's journey and was given thumbs up for his version of the Heroines Labyrinth. Yeah, and that is not true. That was the claim that Campbell made, which he failed to prove. All he had were cherry-picked examples. Exactly. And there are, I know Drew's was very much against it. And I also, like I mentioned before the other day, that I would hope that other cultures, there's a way for other cultures to have their frameworks expressed for their storytelling and mythology and things of that nature. And so what we mean by frameworks is that some of these frameworks tell a story or help us tell stories. In many ways, they are told through mythology to educate the population about dangers, about life, about goals that people should strive for. And if we can, let me see if I can share this out to you. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to share out my own document. Forget that. We'll share out the combined document that I made here. Here's my growing document of, it's hopefully you'll be able to see it clearly. I may take down the chat and just highlight your comments if I can make this bigger, if need be. So just, and by the way, just let me know in the chat if you're watching this on a screen of some sort. Just let me know if the chat is shrinking. Let's see if I can make this even better. We'll deal with it. I can actually here. Gee, why don't I just pick the whole thing and bump up the. Yeah, let's max out the font. I'll just scroll. That makes more sense. Okay, so by the way, this is the my version of the combination of the Journey and the Labyrinth, and I hit more because I think we're creative enough to come up with other methods or values or whatever in terms of this. And some of you may recognize this framework, even if you have never studied the hero's journey or know anything about the heroine's labyrinth. And at the very top here, I put the sacred fire and the black swan. I'm going to do this and separate this out so we have some space here. Damn it. Sorry about that. I put the sacred fire and the black swan up at the top because these are two notable features that I actually think the sacred fire is missing from the hero's journey, and also the black swan event is something that happens in the labyrinth. The sacred fire is a special, unique power, skill, or ability that our main character or characters have. And mind you, that doesn't need to be a superpower or magic. In drama, it could be the ability to bring the family together, or we see this in television and movies where someone has the ability to listen to others, or talk down angry people, or cook a dinner for the family. They are the locust of all the family drama, and they bring everyone together. They're like the grandmother of the group. Or maybe there's an individual, let's talk about the hero version of it. Special abilities, they have special combat abilities. They have the ability, this is a common trope. Our hero has the ability to kill. They don't want to do it, and they're very good at it, but they don't. That's their skill. Wolverine suffers from that kind of thing. His sacred fire, his ability is he wins every fight, and in some ways that can actually work against them. There are some other things, whether it's strength or speed, intelligence, empathy, things like that. Now, of course, if you get to fantastical regions, it could be magic, a gift from the gods, things of that nature. In the sacred fire is not mentioned in the hero's journey. It's just mentioned that the hero must obtain a great skill to defeat to survive an ordeal. But I like the idea of the sacred fire because there may be enemies that want to take that sacred fire away from the character or manipulate them to use the sacred fire in their own nefarious versions. The Black Swan event is a devastation to the world event on the horizon. It's essentially I guess I could delete the rest of that part. It's a looming threat on the horizon that will maybe destroy the home culture or the region or something like that. Oftentimes we see this as weather events. Sometimes it might be more war related, like a bomb or a marching army. If the army arrives at a particular time, everything is lost. It could be a document that arrives in someone's hands. It could be a secret information. Maybe it's a person that has a secret, and if they express that secret to someone in authority, everything is going to crumble. Something like that. It could be an ancient curse or those kind of things. And these two things can come up in the story at any point. For example, in Star Wars, the sacred fire is the Force. And in Star Wars, the Black Swan event, of course, is the Death Star, and it firing at anything. And if there isn't an enemy, maybe the enemy is the environment. Again, the Black Swan event could be a snowstorm or a sandstorm or whatever, floods, uh, so on and so forth. Let me move down here, beginning of these, and then let me see what your comments are. There we go. Okay, I got your comments here. Are the symbols white on a purple block for you? I'm not sure exactly what that means. For some reason, I don't have a background, which is strange, but whatever. Jay says, "Oh yeah, Hero's Journey. Well, it's nice to see that we're all completed." 225,915. How did you measure that? Drew says, "I still don't like that Doug has called it Black Swan. I always have to think of science and also the film, but it either is borrowed from economics." Yeah. Because a Black Swan event in economics is like the unexpected thing that happens that affects economics that we don't know what happens. Like the pandemic was a version of that. You're so weird. TA says, "Well, Black Swan event is just a call to an unforeseen event in the future. So it can be in tech or economic events, possibly even caused by tech that was also unexpected." Yes. And there's also a movie. And a movie based around a play, The Black Swan. But yes, it is the unexpected event. And I think that's probably where he comes from. Okay. All right. So in the beginning of the Heroes, let's see. Drew says, "I would say that the Force is the sacred fire. I mean, Leia does not rely on that in the first film. I would say that the rebellion is the sacred fire much more than the Force. And mind you, the sacred fire can be different for each character. And again, it doesn't have to be a superpower. So in the first movie, Leia's ability to the plans to the Death Star and the rebel forces are essentially her sacred fire, and the Force happens to be Luke's sacred fire. But we actually don't get to see anyone like go after it until the second and third movies. But so yeah, and then it depends on the type of movie or story you're telling. Like for example, a one character's sacred fire could be, if you have an entourage, right? Collectively, the rebellious nature of our great heroes is their sacred fire, and then individually, each of them may have a special ability. Sometimes, like a side character's special ability is basically just humor and calmness, or something like that, or their great sacrifice, things like that. So, and mind you, it depends on storytelling. Like I said, this is taken from storytelling. Well, the reason I did this is because I had to break it down into 12. You'll see Drew in a minute, because let me share this out first. This is Douglas Burton's website, and I own this book. I have the physical version of this book, The Heroines Labyrinth, and it goes into the various. There's a breakdown of the various frames. Let's see if I can find. Oh, it's on the home page. No. Come on. Where is it? Where? Huh. Where is the? All right. Let me. Come on. Let's see if I can find. Is this it? Yeah. Up there we go. We're gonna share this. Here it is. Sorry about that. This is the breakdown at Heroines Labyrinth. And I will copy and put this into the chat so you guys can get. There we go. And I hear you, Drew. Replace the Minotaur and broken true systems belong together. You'll see in a minute. So by the way, background here is the gentleman's website. This is the Labyrinth, and then below that are like 22. I didn't count them. Let's see, 6 plus 5, 11 plus 9, 20 different categories, story notes that we hit. And then we have like the culture, for example, the culture and the broken truce is down here at the bottom, and different events. And what I did is I combined a couple of these together to get to shrink it down to 12. I just picked the number 12 just because the hero's journey has been shrunk down to 12. And very quickly, very quickly, we have the Labyrinth, which is the complicated home life of our character that they need to navigate and they don't know how to navigate. Then there's the culture truce. The culture has rules and regulations, and our hero or heroine is pushing against that truce. You must do these things, and the character doesn't want to do those things. The masked Minotaur is the social apex predator, the person that is accepted in the culture, that has all the great power, but we know there's a dark side to them. And technically they're a beast wearing human clothing. The matriarchal paradox is oftentimes in the heroine's story. She is required to maintain the traditions of matriarchy and the feminine role. Oftentimes we see these stories where the female character must get married and have children and wear clothing and present themselves as a lady. And we see that a lot of times in those stories. In a greater story, if we take away the gender part of it, a lot of times it's the desire for our main character to uphold and represent like law and order and tradition. The call to adventure, of course, is that thing that happens that makes our character a breakaway. And then we have entering the labyrinth, where our character decides to go into the complicated region. What I think of as this labyrinth is that if we ever see detective stories, or the soldier that comes home, or the individual that returns home to a place that they don't recognize any longer, this is where you get that labyrinth, where the soldier comes home and they don't recognize their family any longer. And part of that is kind of they don't recognize themselves. They've changed and the community is different. Crime stories where there's a criminal underworld and our police detective, we got the new detective that comes into town and they have to navigate the labyrinth of the city and the police department or something like that. Secondly, we have the labyrinth. That was the labyrinth defined. Now we have the labyrinth navigated. Drew calls this, instead of the cult of deception, is the dynasty of deceit. And this is where we have characters who knowingly and unknowingly are keeping secrets and lying to our main character about what's going on within the community and things happening at large. Oftentimes the masked Minotaur and the cult of deception are aligned, but it doesn't have to be that way. The three chambers, these are basically like chamber secrets, and the chamber guardians, I like to combine these together, but essentially there's a guardian of the three chambers, and those three chambers are where our character starts to uncover what the hell's going on. Again, noir stories, detective stories oftentimes have us finding clues. In the heroine, female-centered stories, we have us talking to the elders or matrons or something. Or oftentimes you see a character go into the attic or the basement to look at old photographs or diaries or something of that nature and find out clues. And usually there's a chamber guardian, someone that doesn't want them seeing it, or they have to perform tasks or get the trust of the guardian in order to find the secret. Down here we have the beast as ally. The beast as ally is someone in the story that we often depending on the writing, sometimes we are convinced, or there's a layer of beast over top of the person who's more human. And this individual oftentimes can be like a criminal, an ex-boyfriend, an individual with an attitude. Oftentimes they're the ones who are like in the military. They're the ones who are often thrown aside because they're the ones who rail against authority, and they're like, why haven't you gained any rank? It's because they keep punching out their superiors because they're stupid. This person often is rude to our main female protagonists in these kind of stories, but they end up getting together. Han Solo is definitely a beast as ally. Sympathy for the other is also the fragile power. I'm surprised he hasn't changed it yet, because he often calls it the fragile power. This is often like the sidekick, the weaker character, the nerdy character, someone that everyone else considers to be worthless or useless, but our main character, heroine, finds them to be skillful or knowledgeable or more brave than they think they are. Sometimes this other sympathy for the other might even be just a pet or something like that, or someone that's injured or elderly or very young. Then the character becomes a tradition breaker. She breaks out of the culture. She breaks the truce that she has with possibly the Masked Minotaur and or the Dynasty of Deception, and breaks that truce and is like, I could go back home and I could pretend like I don't know all these things, but instead they break that truce. The poisoned apple is often where our female protagonist is injected, empoisoned, ingests, knocked out, maybe even her sacred fire is taken away and is helpless. And then now we have to unmask the Minotaur. And then lastly, we have the Labyrinth solved. The home is battleground, where all things come together, usually at home. And a home is often a real home, like a house and a home, or other times it's literally back at the home base, or back in the culture. We have the Shield Maiden event, where our character stands in front of some innocence, or stands between evil, and stands there and is almost ready to sacrifice themselves. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We have to unmask and slay the Minotaur, take them down. Usually the slaying of the Minotaur doesn't happen with our main character. Sometimes our main character unmasks the Minotaur, and then the culture slays the Minotaur. Usually like imprisonment or actual murder, or being arrested and strung up or something like that. And then lastly, we have our last two, atonement with the self, basically like coming to terms with breaking the rules, and do they want to, and then master of the labyrinth are kind of combined together, where we restructure the home culture, or find our way through the labyrinth and now we've mastered it, or maybe the labyrinth becomes solved and everybody can exit or enter the labyrinth as they will, because the things have been solved and whatnot. Okay. That's a lot, but yeah, that's a lot. Sorry about that. So we're let me see your comments here, and then we'll get into combining the two with the hero and things like that. Don't blame me about the background music there. No, it's all online. Honestly, I pick these things randomly, and I go, okay, is it sounding okay? All right, and as long as it doesn't drown me out, I pick it. I have a list of categories of music that I can pick from, and I can shuffle it to pick one that I like. And after about 3 bars, I just pick it. So don't blame me. But I just hope my ear's pretty good. All right. Yeah. Hey, TA. Oh, man. I don't know. Hey, Detroit representing up in here. Okay. Sorry, I'm an enemy. I'm in Ohio Valley, so wah wah. Someone send your President Detective novel. Maybe he'll get a clue that. Ooh, burn. You see how late the broken truce comes, it makes no sense to put it first. Well, let me explain myself. So Drew mentions. So I wrote something down, and am I in the? There it is. Okay. So with the journey and the labyrinth up at the very top, we have ourselves the ordinary world, and next to it we have the culture truce broken. And the reason why, yeah, here it is, Drew. Drew's like, explain yourself, damn it. By the way, I'm inferring that that's what you mean, so I'm going to speak in your voice. Explain yourself. So the reason why I put it up there is because many times we, in our tabletop role-playing games and our heroes, we explain the ordinary world. The ordinary world can absolutely be like the farm, the classic Lex Luthor. Jeez, Luke Skywalker is a farm boy, but we often see our heroine doing things. We are subtly or explicitly told that our main character wants to break out of the culture. So we oftentimes will have our main character not doing their chores, and everyone is yelling at our character who's jumping and running around and having fun. And the people in the culture, there's music playing. I'm talking about Disney movies, right? Or the person's playing, and we have the reason why I combine them together, and mind you, I just used a short phrase, is that we have both explaining what our culture is about, and then our main protagonists pushing against that in a very fun, comedic, or lighthearted movie. Maybe our characters dancing and singing, and they're throwing things around, they're ignoring their chores and whatnot, and they are pushing against, they're breaking the truce from the culture. If it's a more serious movie like Sicario, which I hope to do a review with someone, breaking down that movie using the hero's journey and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Lex Skywalker and Luke Luthor. I should make a T-shirt about that. Oh man, but yeah, in Sicario, one of our main characters, Emily Blunt's character, I don't remember her name, is a FBI agent that gets pulled into taking down a drug cartel, and in the beginning of the movie, she's constantly saying, "We can't do these things. I am an agent of the law, and you guys are special forces people trying to take down a cartel. You're breaking rules," and it's that kind of thing. And she is, after a traumatic event that happens to her team, she's like, "Okay, I'm down with you guys. Like, let's go. I'm breaking the truce in it." Now, the second group we have here is the call to adventure. And you notice I put call to adventure across from each other. And that is for tabletop role-playing games. Like, what's the reason for our character to leave home? The classic, we're in the tavern, we're drinking ale, we're having fun. Our characters used to be, we have backgrounds for our characters. They came from humble beginnings. Maybe they were a hermit, or they came from an orphanage, or they're a street urchin, or they're a sailor, or whatever. What is the thing that causes them to be pulled into the adventure? Is it money? Is it glory? Is it a threat to their home culture? That's where they get the call to adventure. Sometimes people call it the inciting event. That's the quest given, right? We're in the tavern, and the old man or the injured person stumbles into the tavern with a map, or a medallion, or an old story before they die, and we are told about the thing, and they're sent off to their adventure. Our number 3 is the refusal of the call. I put danger afar, in the masked minotaur. And in the journey, the refusal of the call, I think, has sometimes the character does not want to leave home, and they're given a reason they don't want to leave home. Hey, if I leave home, you're going to be unprotected. If I leave home, who's going to tend the farm? If I leave home, who's going to watch over you, elder person who's sick, or young people that don't have a guardian? It's that kind of thing. It can sometimes be instead interpreted as an expression of the danger that our hero is going to go into, and we're we're notified about that danger before they leave. Oftentimes we get to see this by it's combined with the call to adventure, right? Our heroes, boop, 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 boom, I'm bored, and suddenly there's death and destruction all around them, and then our hero is like, I gotta go off and do this thing, and someone else says, you can't go, it's too dangerous, it's death-defying, and especially in tabletop role-playing games, it's the proverbial, hey guys, everyone has traveled to this hidden island, has never come back. Maybe you won't come back, or the goblinoid raiders have killed all these people, and now you've gone off into the village and you see all the death and destruction. Hey, the village was burned, or everyone got turned to stone, or so on and so forth. Hey, there's something spit acid all over the place. What's the danger here? And that's when we're told the danger. The Masked Minotaur, on the other hand, is when our characters stay home. And the Masked Minotaur, for at-home adventures, can be someone that the players know is the great evil, but if they do or say something against it, everyone else is going to there's going to be retribution. The Masked Minotaur, often the role-playing game that uses this that I know of off the top of my head very often is Vampire the Masquerade and the White Wolf style games, where our characters know who's the bad guy, but they really don't have the ability to challenge them up front one-on-one, because if they do so, they're going to get crushed by the society, right? The Masked Minotaur is like, I'm going to use the rules against you. And in Vampire, it's basically, there's a rule in Vampire, for those who don't know, that's called, especially by the Camarilla, that no vampires can harm or kill another vampire. And we all know that's a lie, right? It's a cult of deception lie. They do it all the time. But if you do that openly, the rest of the society can hunt you down, and that's the mitigating effect, right? It's, you can't kill another vampire, because if you try it, everyone gets to murder kill you and do a blood hunt. Drew says the refusal is in other story structure models sometimes called the debate. I like that. I like that word too, since the protagonist works through the reasonings for staying and leaving. You know what? Too late. I'm going to change it to... And sometimes the debate as well can also be, for lack of a better term, it's kind of where we where we, oh man, I forgot the term for it. Where we explain the plot of the movie. It's the explain-o-vision part, where everyone's like, so what are we doing? Why are we doing? It's the Ocean's 11, let's explain the heist. Sometimes can also be part of the refusal of the call, debate. There we go. It can also be that, where it's like, okay, what's happening in this in the Mission Impossible movie? Okay, listen, guys. Here's the thing that's impossible for us to do, and then now we got to work our way through it. Now as we're moving down, we have the guide and the labyrinth, and it's in a weird way. I put these. Seth Skorkowski. Yes, Skorkowski. I can't remember his name. He's got an excellent channel. So in the here we have on the left, of course, the hero's journey and the heroine's labyrinth. So on the left we have the journey, we have the guide, and on the other side we have the labyrinth. And I kind of lined it up that way a little bit because in the journey, the guide is often a mentor. Now it doesn't have to be, because there are some stories where the guide is someone who is weaker, but they know what's going on. In a detective story, our guide might be like a criminal informant, a CI. In many movies, we have Gandalf or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the guide is literally the mentor. But we do have some other stories where the guide could be a diary or a map or a distant memory. The Bourne movies kind of work this way a little bit, where forgotten memories come back, and that's the thing that guides our character towards our goal when they're lost. But unfortunately, in the Labyrinth, we don't really know where we're going. And the Labyrinth, yes, the Labyrinth can be and is often depicted as a physical thing. Navigating a city that you don't know, sewers, basements, dungeons, dystopian post-apocalyptic places have labyrinths, but a labyrinth can be a social labyrinth. A character that's there that always says the wrong thing, that doesn't know who to talk to. People are laughing behind their back, and we see this in coming of age stories where the character comes to a new school and they're trying to navigate, and they're just frustrated with, where do I sit to eat down? Who do I talk to? And that kind of thing. The Beast is ally, and in defense of Drew, before Drew brings this up, because Drew's actually mentioned this already, I feel like the framework in the Labyrinth is more malleable than the framework in the there it is. Yeah, I wasn't going to look it up, but yeah, I'm definitely subscribed, and I listen to a lot of his stuff. I feel like that we're not replacing the things that are happening in the Labyrinth, but I feel like you could move them around a lot more than the hero's journey. And I like a framework that you can move around, because it brings better storytelling, right? Like, Swearkowski, stop. Yeah, I like his channel too. Absolutely. Now we have Crossing the Threshold, and I guess Crossing the Threshold could be parallel to Entering the Labyrinth. So I just wrote the Labyrinth to encompass what the Labyrinth is, entering the Labyrinth, and then navigating it all as one. The Crossing the Threshold and Dynasty of Deception are two categories. So Crossing the Threshold is basically the physical or mental journey our character goes on for the journey. So we often see this physically. They sail on a boat, they travel on a starship, they are on a military helicarrier that drops them behind enemy lines, that kind of thing. You go on a journey, you cross into the valley, you go over the mountain. It's crossing the threshold. Sometimes there's something there preventing our hero from making the journey to cross the threshold in the first place. But yes, it's crossing the threshold, and very easy to come up with those. We have lots of examples of that. The Dynasty of Deception is one. Sometimes I see three examples of the Dynasty of Deception. One is one done from innocence but misaligned. So sometimes in the Labyrinth, we have a culture where they're lying to our main character to protect them from the masked minotaur or other evil things. It's the idea of not letting our female character know about the beast that lives in the woods, even though the beast is probably a nice person, right? It's like, no, you need to stay here. Sometimes it's out of fear. Maybe the community is lying to everyone else because the leaders of the community are just fearful of what's out there in the darkness. And we see this in crime movies where we know there's criminal elements out there and everybody knows it, but no one says it out loud. And some of our younger or naive, like a detective or something, main characters are like, I don't understand what's going on. And everyone's like, no, don't go to that neighborhood. No, don't talk to the family of this mob boss like that. You're probably going to get yourself murder killed. So you're silly. Have you seen the video where he describes a cyberpunk game where the players called a realty company to show the property so the realty company would clear the place out of squatters? That's a great idea. I haven't seen that. I haven't well, I listen to my videos, but yeah, I haven't heard that one. But actually that's a really good idea. I've had players who have gone to libraries and called up building plans and things like that, so they can sneak into buildings. That's actually public domain kind of stuff. Followed up by, I've got a showing for this building. Yeah, it's a great idea. To be honest with you, it's an awesome idea. So now we go down to this portion is with the Dynasty of Deceit keeping the ordinary world and the status quo intact. It basically again reinforces why you should put that first. Yeah, I actually thought about that, like removing the Dynasty of Deception and putting it up at the top. Doug doesn't do that. Let me see if I can bring this back up here. Oh yes, so on his, he has Cult of Deception as his part 2 and the Culture Truce here. But again, Drew, I'm with you kind of. I could see a Dynasty of Deception in part 1, but again, I feel like this is a framework that has movable parts, because some stories we don't even know there's a Cult of Deception, Dynasty of Deceit, whereas other ones it's like right up front. Our character doesn't know, but we as the spectator are like, oh hell yeah, there's something going on, and we don't know what's going on. Others are we are looking through our main character's eyes, and then they uncover the deceit. So I think in a weird way you could move them around. And in here, he does have a Cult of Deception and then the 3 chambers and the Chamber Guardians. And in a lot of stories, these are kind of combined together, where the Chamber Guardians are the members who are creating the Cult of Deception according to Doug, what Doug uncovered. Whereas some are actually 2 separate things. Like the Chamber Guardians are truth tellers, but no one's listening to the truth until our main character pierces through the deception to get there. It goes back and forth. You get it. So yeah, there's it. And the Broken Truce is more similar to the Crossing of the Threshold. People, you guys are funny. Yeah, Drew mentions that the Broken Truce is more similar to the Crossing of the Threshold. I agree with that too. Like the Broken Truce could probably be, because there's more. It feels like there's naturally more steps in the journey more steps in the Labyrinth than the journey, because it's a little more complicated. So maybe I have to accept that part. But as far as like with tabletop role-playing games, which I really should be going back to, I feel like the Labyrinth is a great framework to pull from to tell like those city stories, those we've returned back from the long adventure to come back home, and now we don't recognize what's back home, and fit those things in there that unconsciously we see in these various stories. I also feel like the Crossing the Threshold, the Dynasty of Deception, Test Allies and Enemies, and the Guarded Chambers is like the largest chunk of a lot of the stories that we see, right? Like in the journey, it just calls Test Allies and Enemies. That's a huge chunk of storytelling, because a lot of times in the journey, like our characters like traveling through the woods and going to caves and like doing battle and then recovering and then finding an ally, and then they team up and then they do another thing. And like, when it says test, it's like, well, how many? Usually 3 is a good number, but Luke Skywalker, right? Luke Skywalker has to test allies and enemies. He meets the guide, Obi-Wan, okay. Then he's got to cross the threshold when he goes into the cantina of Scum and Villainy, which apparently he was maybe never allowed to go there, and sees someone's arm get cut off. And then he's got to meet Han Solo, okay, an ally, and then he's got to find out, well, who are enemies, which they're pushing. We don't have droids in here, and you smell funny, stupid human. And then not only does he get together with them, but he's going after, he's got the message with the princess that sends him off as an adventure, and then they get stuck inside of they get backed into, and then they get stuck inside of a trash compactor, and they got to get out of there, and they're fighting stormtroopers, and this part of the journey is complicated. It's getting swallowed by snakes, and getting injured and in patching it up and sitting down at the campfire again and doing it all over again and whatnot. And so while it's like a very small part of the hero's journey written down, if you are a screenwriter or you're writing adventures, that's where your adventure dungeon blah 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 is called. The audio, TA says the audio track reminds me of the soundtrack for the show VR5, I believe it was called. I don't remember that one. I don't know. Over here it's called down tempo, and be aware. Full disclosure, it is AI generated, so don't. Uncle Harlow, who we never get to see. Uncle Harlow is never unmasked. Beast as ally, could be Beast as ally. So, let's see. Oftentimes in stories where we have the Beast as ally and the fragile power as well, we have strange bedfellows. I think the Beast as ally actually does fit over from the Labyrinth into the journey, because many times our main character in the journey ends up befriending someone or something. Like, technically Chewbacca kind of fits into that category, although we do have our main, like, whether we have superheroes or we have detectives or we have warriors or hunters or something like that. Beast as ally or fragile power could be like a pet or a wolf or a computer program or spy movies. I stay in the van. Hey, Ethan Hunt, you do all the jumping and climbing over buildings and swimming and holding your breath and hanging on the side of planes, but I stay in the van, right? That's kind of like the fragile power. Now, the Beast as ally individual, like I said, in detective stories is often like the criminal who has a heart of gold, the person who seems like they're evil, but they're really not. And AI generate music that you can't download as a WAV file, am I right? Yes, that is correct. I can't download it. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's software to allow me to do it, but on my end, it's just a click and play. I may actually show that to you one day. I may show that to you. All right. I put down the Dark Cavern. Under the hero's journey, it's often called like the ordeal, or entering the dark cave, or entering the cave or something. And the Dark Cavern is not only where a character is physically tested, but also like ethically, morally, psychologically tested. Translated from Joseph Campbell, where he had, tempted by the female, tempted by the mom, tested by the dad, or something like that. Or also related to the Temptress, is where imagine Superman, but instead of physically fighting robots or like kryptonite, empowered thugs or something like that, he's going to be tested morally. Give up Lois Lane and I'll stop, allow Lois Lane to die and I'll stop committing my crimes. And he's like, well, I can't let Lois Lane die, but I don't want this person to destroy the world, so which one do I choose? Batman and, suffering with his trauma from Crime Alley or something like that. Spider-Man, classic Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Aunt May versus the world, right? Which one do I save first? Mary Jane and all those other people. And oftentimes they're also conflicted with their own challenges, right? Sometimes our hero is so good at killing that classic lone wolf and cub story, where Wolverine must go ham on the bad guy, but he allows an innocent to see him look like a murderous beast covered in blood and gore. And it's like, do I do this thing or don't I? And then if they make that decision, they may ruin their relationship with somebody else. So that's usually like the psychological part. Moving over to the Labyrinth, this is where our character acquires like their ally. It basically assembling their army, right? I get the beast as ally, the fragile power steps up and takes their spot, and now I can like really get through this labyrinth, right? Um, I'm not alone anymore. I've got people behind me, and we see this plenty of times in drama stories where our character must get a new job, or in romantic stories, right, where the fragile power is like their best friend who's like, you should go for him. He's all right, or the beast is ally, the boss that was really rude, but then looks at the main character and is like, you know what, you're kick ass, that kind of stuff. Then we have, the Dark Cavern and the Ordeal. We're going to move down to the Poisoned Apple. Let's see, Poisoned. Oh, it crossed over kind of funky there, but whatever. This is more or less in drama stories than you could do in tabletop role playing. But the Poisoned Apple part is where our heroine gets ingests or is injected with something, gas, poison, whatever, is knocked out, and then is helpless and confronted by the Minotaur. And basically the Minotaur is like, wear this dress and get married to me. Unfortunately, oftentimes there is an analogy to older stories where there's so YouTube doesn't get in trouble. I don't get in trouble with YouTube. There are like, it's a grape analogy where there's some kind of SA happening to the female, and so that it's edited out, oftentimes we see our female characters dressed in a manner that pleases our masked Minotaur, and the Minotaur makes a plead for that character. And that looks weird. For our journey, the reward is this, I put Sacred Fire. Sometimes the reward for the journey, our character gets like a magic sword, or they achieve a goal, they're gifted by the gods. Sometimes the reward is not getting anything at all. They realize that the power is in themselves. They realize that they're badass. They didn't realize that in the beginning, right? That's the reward for our journey. Similar thing happening in the Labyrinth, but same thing. We're moving down to the resurrection, the sacrifice. That's on the journey side, and where our hero basically puts themselves. I put it across from the Shield Maiden event, because we see this often in stories where our hero, depending on how well it's written, a lot of times we don't think our hero is actually going to die. But if it's written very well, our hero is put into the resurrection / sacrifice position, where they literally stand before everyone, the great evil, the community, the dragon, and set themselves up to sacrifice themselves, all or nothing. Now, for Luke Skywalker, in many ways, the resurrection and sacrifice was when he took out the Death Star, because it was combined with the reward in the Sacred Fire, in my opinion, for Luke's story. So he accepted the Force, turned off the targeting computer, and fired. Now, we all know in the movie, technically, had he not been able to do that, the forces of the Death Star would just basically almost eliminated the rebellion completely. He would have been eliminated with all of them, assuming the story was real life. Which also meant in many ways he was sacrificing himself, right? I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna let faith take control, faith / the Force, and see if it happens. I'm gonna trust in it, because you know what? It's the only thing we have left, and he does the thing. Now, in a dark twist, he could have missed and sacrificed himself, or in another story, he misses, and then he himself dives into the Death Star, sacrificing himself. Now, some stories that actually happens, and the hero actually survives some other way, like as a computer system, or the gods save him miraculously, or whatever. But we've seen that before, where the hero basically is like, no, I'm gonna grab the electrical cord and make myself a conduit to shut down the power system before the bomb goes off, or something like that. Um, I drive with the bomb in my car, and I'm gonna drive off the pier and dive into the water with the bomb, so no one else gets hurt. That kind of thing. And Shield Maiden event, very similar to that, where our character stands in front of usually fragile innocents and goes, "Hell no, you're not hurting them. You're not hurting the people." Oftentimes, the Shield Maiden event is wrapped up in the rest of the story, where the Shield Maiden stands in front of the culture that even rejected her. Many times a female, doesn't have to be, and stands in front of them. If I can pull out a visual, remember in the movie The Batman, where the recent Batman movie, where there's the flood and Gotham gets flooded, and he pulls out a flare and the people are following him. That is very much like the sacred, the light of the fire, the hero standing in front of the dangers and things like that. Kind of Batman-ish Shield Maiden moment in a weird way, kind of thing. So yeah, it kind of works that way if you look at it, if you squint. And lastly, we have for our journey, the road back home, and combined with house or home. I wrote that as house or home because some people in their journey, when they come back home, they don't fit in any longer. Frodo and Bilbo didn't fit at home any longer with the hobbits. We see this in country western movies, where our bounty hunter, slayer, gunman tries to go back home and they try to lead a normal life, but they just don't fit in. And they essentially turn into the beast. They sacrifice their humanity so that the people can live normally, but they have to walk off. Mad Max, the Mad Max stories are like that. Max Rockefeller, something like that. Anyway, Max is basically, he's always taking the road back, but he can't because he's still suffering from and feeling guilt and all that kind of stuff and trauma. And then we have this in the Labyrinth on the other side, home as battleground and out of the maze. I wrote it down as out of the maze because basically the Labyrinth either is solved and our character solves it for everyone, or our character is singular getting out of the Labyrinth, but eventually they basically learn what the Labyrinth is. They master the Labyrinth. A crime detective that understands the seedy underbelly, right? Sometimes the crime element's not removed, but our detective has a tacit relationship with the criminal element. They're like, yeah, we have respect for you. You stay in your element, we stay in ours, and we have respect for you. Cool. What's the television show? Sons of Anarchy, with the motorcycle gang, very much follows the Labyrinth model, not very much with the Journey model, where they have their own culture, and some characters break that culture and things like that and whatnot. So anyway, all this to say, let's go back up to the top here. The Journey in the Labyrinth and more. I suppose we could have come up with some. I didn't give you guys an opportunity to come up. Rockatansky, is that his last name? Yeah. You guys are so funny. Spooky's so funny. You don't believe in the Force, do you? Asked the farm boy who had never heard of the Force 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I don't know. Did he not know what the Force was? I'm trying to remember. It was and yet the Leia Slave outfit is a hugely popular cosplay. Yeah. It is an essay / grape analogy. Very much so. I mean, come on. Let's really, if we're honest with ourselves, that's what that's about, right? And although, to be honest with you, at a very young age, it used to annoy me whenever I saw our bad guy captures the female. Our female character in the movie is redressed, and she's got the outfit and the makeup and her hair's done, and she's like, "Someone save me." And I'm just like, wait a minute, wasn't earlier in the movie, weren't you a badass, kick-ass chick, and all of a sudden you're just like, I'm in a skimpy dress. Now I can't do anything. And I'm like, oh my God. I used to roll my eyes when things like that happened all the time. The worst offender was a Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie that did that. In the beginning of the movie, Robin Hood comes back from the Crusades and almost gets his ass kicked by Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio, who plays I don't know, what's her name? Oh, what's the female character in the Robin Hood story? Jane or something, or Guinevere? Well, I don't remember her name. Anyway, it didn't matter. People's accents, came and went in that thing. But anyway, simply by wearing a mask and some leather armor, she starts kicking ass, and I'm like, damn, okay, that's kind of cool. And then later in the movie, she acts like, Robin saved me, and I'm like, really? What happened to all those badass skills? Weird. Wasn't it that he used the force to make the photon torpedo bend and change course and go into that exhaust shaft? I don't think they ever explained it. I always thought that that's how they flew. Was it Maid Marian? That's it, Maid Marian. Yeah. Yep. Thanks you guys for getting there, because I don't know jack shit. But yeah. Maid Marian? Marian? I don't know. Yeah, it was, and the reason why that frustrated me so, it wasn't because she was helpless. It was because the movie told me that she was a badass, and then they made her helpless. Don't show me things and then take it away in the movie. You already, hey movie writers, I'm believing what you have to say. Don't take that back after you tell me. Yeah. Drew says another reason why this is just a warrior's journey. PTSD, not allowing the soldier to ever forget the horrors of war. Yeah, that is yes, that is part of the warrior, like very masculine warrior journey kind of thing. But I don't believe that is restricted to men. But I agree that is very male centered. But a woman, how many? We've had plenty of stories to various quality degrees where our female protagonists must pick up the blade, gun, weapon, whatever, and go off because all the dudes are dead, and then gotta go off and then join the war and become a badass, and then suffers the exact same fate, the PTSD and things like that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with telling that story as well, right? Maybe we just don't tell it very well, but there's always space for that. So my argument with you is not an argument with you. It's about the frameworks, that just because the framework says something, or just because people believe the framework should be something, doesn't mean we as creators are shackled in any method or manner. What is the idea? The best way to break a rule is first to learn the rules in the first place. And so these frameworks are rules, air quotes, rules, that I love when people break them, because then when we see someone break them, they do a good job at doing it. That's why I think the movie Sicario is brilliant, because it breaks the trope of the journey and the labyrinth in one combined movie. And that's why I give it a lot of credit for that. Unless it's a play to get Robin Hood to get all hot for her. Yeah. Spook says, I think the photon torpedo is like Han shot first, depending on the version it bends or it just hits. Yeah, I don't know which one. I never gave it that much thought. So thank you for destroying my childhood. I appreciate that. No, you didn't destroy my childhood. I got the impression that they were supposed to bend like that, but I don't know. Isn't Ripley the ultimate hero's journey heroine? In many ways, yes. Doug claims that she's the ultimate heroine's labyrinth character. If you start naming off things like fragile power, sacred fire, navigating the labyrinth, shield maiden event, black swan event, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Ripley. Who else is a great one? Sarah Connor is a great one as well. Sarah Connor does that. Mateo says 20th century pop culture adaptations of the Robin Hood legend almost invariably have featured a maid Marian, and mostly have made her a highborn woman with rebellious or tomboy character. No. Don't. You are absolutely correct, and it was the characterization of her character in that movie that I didn't appreciate. You made her a badass fighter in the movie. Let me divorce myself from a thing. When a storyteller tells me something, I'm going to believe them. If they don't follow their own rules, that's when I get frustrated. So if you show me a character, I'm just making an example. You show me a character who has in their back pocket a device that allows them to open up a door. If they are locked behind a door and they don't pull out that device again, then the writer of that story is promising me something and not following through with it. Why wouldn't my character be able to pull out that device again? Why didn't they use it? Now they could pull out the device, try to use it, and it doesn't work. It's different. They could have made Marian a badass, and she got beat up by the king or her guards, or the king's guards, not his guards, and then gotten captured. That would have been better. But to make her a badass and then dress her and put her in a dress, I feel exactly the same way with the end of Game of Thrones with Brienne of Tarth. Brienne of Tarth hanging back crying in a dress? That's bullshit. She was a badass. Like, wait a minute, you that's not. I just felt it was oh man, they broke that character. Yeah. Drew says Prey is a great Predator prequel, and again, the woman has no refusal of the call, since that makes no sense for female characters even in the hero's journey. Exactly. Oh, Prey is a great movie. Prey is absolutely great, but I think Prey fits really well into the Labyrinth. Like, she doesn't refuse the call. The dog is a fragile power. Yeah. I think very much she pulls from that character. The character in the movie Prey. It's a great movie. It's a low budget, Predator movie, but Prey is great. Prey is a very good movie. Let's see. Oh, let me stop sharing this bullshit out. Here we go. Read some more. Get some more of your comments in here. Yes, Ripley is more of a Heroines Labyrinth character in both Alien and Aliens. I agree. I wonder if Sarah Connor fits. Is there a Labyrinth? I think there is. I think Sarah Connor fits in that very much as well. I would almost even say between Terminator 1 and 2, Sarah Connor goes on her own hero's journey and then returns back to the Labyrinth. All the skills she got between movie 1 and 2 was her hero's journey, and I'm going to stick with that. I pulled that out of my ass. I'm going to stick with it. Shai says, except no mentor, Bishop, and not much of a real positive outcome except jumping into a lava tank and getting reincarnated with xenomorph DNA. Well, I don't know. I think Bishop might be the Beast as ally. I would say Bishop in the Alien movie was the Beast as ally, or at least from her point of view. The Beast is like the evil, monstrous thing, because she learned that from the first movie with Ash, and then he becomes the ally when his body is ripped in half and he still tries to save her, and he becomes her ally. So that's where I would do it. If I had to do that very quickly, I would do it like that. Mateo says Prince of Thieves was great as a kid, but I rewatched it recently and it's very bad. Yeah. Was it Robin Hood Prince of Thieves was the movie that? Now, mind you, some of the action in it was cool and things like that, but that bothered me so much. Man, oh man, did they take liberties? Yeah, okay. Or Morgan Freeman's character was cool, but he's also quintessential token black shoehorned in. Yeah, well, yeah, come on. Listen, if you got an opportunity to shoehorn in Morgan Freeman, I don't blame them. There's some movies where they're just made better by like shoehorning in certain characters, like Morgan Freeman or Samuel L. Jackson or something like that. Some of them are just better, and I think that's what that was. I don't think it. I wouldn't blame them. Kind of, if it was like he just happens to be black, but are movies made better with sprinkling in some Morgan Freeman? Hell yeah. We need a president, and we also have Morgan Freeman. Hell yeah. There was Drew, there was no 7th and 8th season of Game of Thrones, so I don't know what you're talking about regarding Brienne. Exactly. That was some bullshit. And listen, every character, I'm not saying every character, like every female character must be a certain way. There's a lot of talk about that. I think it's too much like sausage fest to me, if you ask my opinion about that kind of stuff. Where guys are complaining that females are strong and all that kind of business. But if you as a creator tell me your characters are a certain way or have certain skills or there's something in your world that exists, and you tell me that, I'm going to believe you as a creator until the point at which you don't follow through with the thing that you created, right? And Brienne, oh man, the crying over a man in a dress for a character whose high point was finally getting knighted and being recognized as a true warrior amongst men, which should have been her high point, just boggled my mind. I was just like, that is some bullshit. Whatever. And that's just one part, but wow. I absolutely agree with you. Spook says Hicks fell into a mentor in Aliens. If you want a mentor role, I would also claim that he might have been, you could also kind of fit him into the fragile power role. Because a fragile power is like the unexpected, weaker, underestimated character, and he ends up getting hurt very early. So I could see someone making him the fragile power under the Labyrinth framework, where he does I think he does one or two things in the movie to help out in his injured state. I think he of course, like you said, mentor, right? He teaches Ripley how to use the guns, gets the guns all together and things like that. He ignores her, dare I say, feminine nature, and is just like, you want to be a badass? Fine. I'm gonna teach you, and I'm gonna talk to you like a real human being, and doesn't treat her as a lesser. You can hear the cats running around me right now. Yeah, so mentor. Yeah, mentor. And mind you, it's okay if you're a good creator, you can take a mentor and kind of fit some characters into multiple roles in your story for various reasons. I don't think there's a problem with that. Drew says Sarah Connor is in the first film, definitely in the Labyrinth. For T2, there's an argument to be made for either or both, and I agree. And not only do I agree with that, sometimes good writers, they don't know they're doing it, but they're probably feeling like, my character is both this and this. This other character is feeling this, and also this other thing. Yeah. Mel Brooks' Robin Hood movie was better after. Yeah, the Mel Brooks, man. Mel Brooks could not be Mel Brooks today. Oh my God. Mel Brooks has some amazingly funny movies that you could not make these movies today. You couldn't make Airplane. You couldn't make his Robin Hood movie. You couldn't make his Frankenstein movie. I can't remember the names of all the Mel Brooks movies, but Morgan Freeman's character was introduced in the 1980s series. Oh, cool. I don't know much about that. Jen says, yeah. Oh no, I agree with you. I do agree with you on that one, right? It says Morgan Freeman was awesome in that. The only character I really liked, but still, all this came back from all this quote came back from the Crusades and brings his Moorish cellmate with him was totally made up. Oh yeah, of course. And to be honest with you, I could see a writer going, we need somebody else. Morgan Freeman's available? Great, let's shoehorn him in there. I mean, I could really see that happening. Would I do that? Probably. Also, because of copyright law here in the States, you can only use the original open domain materials. You can't copy someone else's way. So you can't copy someone else's Robin Hood, but today you can make your own Robin Hood story. So Morgan Freeman being in that movie was their version of it. So yeah, they had to massage it a whole lot. Brienne of Tarth scared me because of her lawful good deference to the rules. She could easily be one of those banality of evil characters who does all this ill shit just following the rules. Yeah, oh yeah, very easily. You know, there is a weird cycle where like the lawful good character very easily can become like the evil character by just following the rules to the letter, which I think is fun. I like that as a concept too. Ash is the masked minotaur, while the synth bishop in Aliens is then more of a beast as ally. I agree with that one. Yep. And the same, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, what is it? They say good storytelling rhymes. What is it? History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And good storytelling, I think, does the same thing. Hey, we're going to have another synthetic character in here, and this time we're expecting that character to be the masked minotaur and isn't. Yeah, but it was cool. Decapitated Stannis. Yeah. Yep. Spook says Hicks, Newt, and later Bishop all became a bit fragile. Then you had Call in Resurrection, ABC. Remember, Ash, Bishop, Call, ABC. In Resurrection, Ripley is really doing. And is it David? In number 4? I can't remember. Ripley is really going for a full punch card of full fragile powers. Yep. She's got to step up. And in many ways, the way the story is told, Hicks, Newt, Bishop, Call, they all are like basically the fist in the air. You can do it! And then she steps up and does the thing. So yeah. Spook says, you could totally do Blazing Saddles today. Yeah, right. You could do Blazing Saddles today once. Yeah. That's so funny. Oh my God. History of the World Part 1. Oh man. You could never. The Life of Brian. Oh man, these movies. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you can get Morgan Freeman for your movie, then you take him for your movie. I definitely agree with that one. Hell yeah. Like, if you can get him, you're like, hey, everybody, rewrite the script. Oh, my God. You guys are so funny. The original character was Nazir, a Saracen assassin from Palestine, and they had to change the Morgan Freeman character's name, etc., to avoid being sued. Yep, exactly. Yep. What I am waiting on is AI being used to make actors that are combinations of people like Morgan Freeman and Samuel L. Jackson, one person. That's coming. I guarantee you that's coming. Voice acting, mannerisms. I mean, there's enough data out there to copy the mannerisms of most of these actors that have been in like 20 plus features, plus stage acting, plus podcasts, plus audio dramas. It's going to be scary, especially when the scary part will be when we see it and it's good. That's the scary part. Jack Nicholson, Jim Carrey. Yep, those are ones. I think there's a top 10, top 15 group you could say, hey, if I've got a story and I fit them in there, that's good. Spook says, similar to the Morgan Freeman discussion, there are a lot of stories for how much a character changes as soon as the writers find out Christopher Walken gets the role. I suspect that's common. Yeah. A lot of times. I mean, like I just rewatched Dune 2 with Christopher Walken as the Emperor. It hit me better, but when I first saw it, I was like, Christopher Walken, because I'm seeing him, not the Emperor. But then when I saw the Dune 2 again with a different outlook, I was like, okay, because in Christopher Walken he does play himself a lot. So he had like the Christopher Walkenisms in it, his voice, his tonality and such, but he did come across as kind of like the slimy, frail, I'm a liar and I'm barely holding on to my throne kind of person in Dune 2. So there's certain characters, certain actors and things like that. So anyway, I know, going on a long time here. Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for letting me share out the hero's journey. Let me see. Let me share this out because I got to round this out just in case people, for some weird reason, people are still here, or they shuffle to the end. Here's the hero's journey in general. 12 stages of the hero's journey. This is an AI overlook of it, but it's pretty accurate. And it tells you, of course, it has the links to where it came from. But the hero's journey, where we have our 12 stages, this was written by, what is the gentleman's name? Sorry, I'm gonna click a link here. Sorry. What is the gentleman's name? Damn it. He interviewed Doug, or him and Doug were on the same podcast together. Let's see if I can find his name down here. Sorry. I want to give credit where credit is due, and I can't think of it. Someone please in the chat, not Joseph Campbell. Oh man, I'm gonna get lost doing this. Anyway, all right. I'll while I'm talking, I'll figure it out. So we have the hero's journey. There's 12 steps, and I think including with storytelling, writing, script writing, novelisms, and tabletop role-playing games, we can include all of these things to a small or great degree for creating pretty good campaigns and adventures, right? The ordinary world versus like crossing the threshold is a very common one. We have our ordinary world, mundane, the classic tavern and everything around it, all the way out to crossing the threshold, going to different planes of existence, or crossing through the valley or over the mountains and going to a great place, and all that kind of stuff. But we have here in for the yin and yanging of it thing, in opposition to it, we have Douglas A. Burton's version of the Heroines' Labyrinth. And the Heroines' Labyrinth is a framework of things that he has said that he discovered in stories involving, for the most part, female protagonists, but not necessarily restricted to that gender. And these are the things in it. And if you write a story or come up with a tabletop role-playing game adventure, adding as many of these elements in there, the concept or the idea is that these things trigger a thing in our mind as a mythological storytelling event, that even though we don't have the name for it, and we may not even have the skills to decipher what a story is, when we see it, it triggers something in our head going like, yeah, that's it. Or, when the call to adventure comes in, yeah, or when it's missing, maybe the opposite. When something is missing, we feel like there's something wrong in the story, right? Like, sometimes we can have a character who's on an adventure and we don't know why. And it might rub us the wrong way. And we go, I don't know why I should care. I think we've all been through that. We've seen a story where we go, the execution of this adventure or this story or this movie or television show or graphic novel, it's just not hitting right. And I have a feeling, along with the execution, sometimes it's missing some of these features, whether it's part of the labyrinth or the journey, or sometimes someone's telling a journey and it really should be a labyrinth storytelling feature, or vice versa, right? Maybe also, I think what's been happening today when it comes to like gender politics and the fight that's happening, the genderfied creationism is, are we telling a labyrinth story with a female protagonist, or are we telling a journey story with a female protagonist? And I'm not saying one has to be the other, but I think sometimes for writers that don't use either of these formats, I think what's rubbing people the wrong way is like, is the character going through an ordeal or not? Because are they learning a skill or not? Are they gathering allies around them or not? Are they uncovering a dynasty of deception, or are they going through the cave or not? And I think when some things are missing or they're mismatched, I think it could rub us the wrong way. And so, yeah. So anyway, guys, I've gone very long with this. You know what? TA, listen, when you said the 12-step hero sober journey, honestly, and this is weird to say, the 12 steps, let me see if I can find the 12 steps of sobriety. Yeah, I know you're being funny, but you know I do this. It's not available. What are the? Here we go. 12 steps. Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see if I can. All right, there we go. I'm going to share this out before we get out of here. Window. Nope. Chrome tab. Share this. All right. So I'm on a website called it's aa.org. The 12 steps. I'm not in. Mind you, I hope people understand this. I'm not making fun of this, but TA says, so the 12-step hero sober journey honestly is I think this is a real storytelling framework for a journey for a character's heroic journey. Doesn't have to be male or female or anything like that, but I think these 12 steps actually tell a story. If you follow now, mind you, for a tabletop role-playing game, I don't think it really fits, but I think you could use this framework. You could erase the what am I going to say? I am trying to say you could erase the sobriety portion of this and reframe it as a psychological journey of someone who is overcoming a weakness of some sort, and I could see this done in science fiction. I could see it being done in fantasy. Yeah, now mind you, this would be more of a psychological framework, more than like an action-packed, sword and sorcery or flying spaceships or something like that. But I think something could be told about this through like VR addiction, or a character who's lost their memory and they have committed many sins or something, and they're coming to terms with it when they've come out of cryo sleep and they don't remember, but then their memories are backed up into their brain, and they get their backed up memories, and the character doesn't know they've done all these things, and they are navigating a world where everyone is treating them a certain way, and we're like, I don't understand why our character is being treated so badly. And then come to find out that our character was like the worst in the world because of the things that they've done, and now they have to make amends for that, even though our character never remembered even doing those things. I could see that being done. They do. I think I wouldn't call it religious nonsense, Drew, but I would say that they are. It is, I believe, as an armchair individual, I think those it's tied to that so that it gives the person a sense of purpose and power, both great power and to be felt small. And religion does that very well. Yeah. Sober, but you guys are very funny. Yeah. Yep. But anyway, I know you weren't. I understand that that's not exactly what you were trying to say. But I mean, you know what, anything that sparks a creative element from people, I don't think you should not use that. I think you should go ahead and use it. They just don't show up thinking, yeah. Oh, Drew. Oh, bow. Wow. Ouch. Burn. Burn. I think for most people, religion does things very well for them. I think as a whole, I get what you're I feel you. I feel you what you're saying there, Drew. Yeah. I think on personal levels, though, on a personal note, despite the horrors that we can attribute to religions and things like that, I think as an aggregate, it's a excellent control valve and mechanism, because if you didn't, you'd have a whole bunch of people that are just like, I'm not beholden to anything. As it's kind of like saying, what is it? Democracy is the best. No, democracy is the worst government we've ever had and better than everything else. It's something like that. Or like democracy is it's something like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I agree. Yeah, of course it is. Of course that is. And listen, let's not pretend like it's the only thing that's been abused. And human beings have the great ability to take things and abuse the hell out of them, and to great effect as well, and spread that abuse to a bunch of other people. You coming up here, Kitty, to say goodbye? Come on. Come on, Brutus. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I'm gonna pick you up and say goodbye, okay? Hey, kitty. All right, I'm gonna put my headphones down so you don't bite the cord. And oh, are you purr? You purr. All right, here we go. You're gonna purr into the camera. Into the microphone. Oh, thank you. You want to get down? Go ahead. Okay. There we go. All right, guys. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Hour and a half into it, we gotta get this done. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Have a great day. Brutus, yay! Yeah, he's so funny. Anyway, guys, have a great. We'll talk about many other things. AI system. I thought about something very funny to do. The Americans, your freedom is as fake as your butter. Oh wow, that's funny. It's truism, but funny. Yeah, it's freedom with an asterisk next to it. Right, exactly. But you know what? Humans are always yeah, humans are always trying to make sense of the world. We're just we are, what's the term called? We are we are excellent. Our brains are excellent at trying to reason out chaos, even if there isn't anything there. Future Friday. Oh, we could do future. Yeah, let's do Future Friday tomorrow. I wonder if I could do a battle of the AIs by using multiple AIs and copy and pasting something from one AI to the other AI and telling the other AI, hey, ChatGPT, I got this from Gemini and I think it sucks. What do you think of this? and then doing it back and forth. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but I just think it would be kind of fun to do that. Like, take something produced by one AI. Yeah, we do have very limited perspectives, even though we think we have a great one. Yeah, but our brains are like organizational machines. You know, that's where hatred and prejudice comes from. We take a bunch of very minor, limited perspectives and build a whole world out of it. You know? Yeah, he sucked out the airlock time. Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think I would even challenge you, not you, TA, but I would challenge us to say that maybe social media is giving us a view of a greater part of the world that our brains can't handle. I don't know. I would even suggest something like that. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Everyone, have a great day. I will see you tomorrow with Future Friday, and we will definitely talk about something greatly on a Future Friday. It won't necessarily have to do with AI, but since that's the big thing, there's some things are ridiculous, some things are fun, and also there's a little bit, like, I've listened to some interviews with like Sam Bankman and other people that, like, the creator or the progenitor of ChatGPT, and a part of me was just scratching my head like, you didn't think this would happen? But anyway, we'll get into it. So you guys have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye.